Oh,
hang on.
He's here.
Hello, Jack.
Are you all right?
Yes. How was your comfort break?
It's fine.
That's what they call them now, don't they?
Why?
When you're on a holiday, they say, "Well, we're going to stop on the way to the airport for a comfort break."
I just call it a neat way.
I need a way, yeah.
Like we all way.
It could be the name for the programme, the comfort break.
Right, so here's some more stats for you.
Okay.
If you've not noticed, me and Steve seem to keep going off on a tangent. It is kind of... It's very involved in what we're
It is, yeah. No, it's good.
We've got a lot of fun.
It's good, we should do this more often.
Yeah. Right, so about 4 in 10 children live in low-income households and 1,295 are in poverty. This is in the Kensington area specifically.
It's weird saying all these statistics are on the website, aren't they? The ward profile, it's called.
Okay. Well, there you go. If anyone wants to know, there you are. This is more than double the national average. It's fallen from 49.5% a decade ago to 41%, which is okay, but, although the numbers decreased over the past 10 years, it's still too high. And what support do families with children in this situation receive?
Well, round here, a lot of the schools, the kids get what's called a premium because either because the children are migrants or they're having issues with regards to the poverty that they live in. So the schools themselves get extra money for these kids and they spend it. And we work a lot, in the local primary schools, and the local primary schools are great. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
You don't go into them and think, they're getting this sort of level of poverty or degradation, whatever you want to call it, through the schools. The schools are always well equipped. The teachers are always very committed to it. Ed teachers are usually very committed to it, and doing radio programs with young people in schools, we're welcome with open arms, aren't we?
Yeah.
And the kids are fantastic on the radio. They make the adults look like kids, and you can't. I don't want to say this because it sounds too corny, but there's a song, "The children are our future" and all that type of stuff, and it's like they really are. Right. But I don't. I think something significant happens at 11, and I think it's got something to do. It's only a pet theory. This is that the secondary schools, academies, or whatever we have around here, aren't really geared up for the real world. You still, we're in a working class area, we're a poor working class area, and kids are still going through an education system where the hoop they've got to jump through is GCSEs in order to get them into further education. Mm-hmm. Now, if I rule the world, I think at 13 or 14, we'd have vocational skills where young people learn vocational skills like nursing, like electrician, like plumbing. So you're actually you don't throw away all the academic subjects, but what's the point of teaching someone till they're 16 maths if they if it's not practical maths, it's not day-to-day maths.
Yeah, I definitely think the kind of most useful aspects of most core subjects in England, they are definitely useful and you do need them. But I do agree because, one thing which maths teachers will disagree because they love maths and that's their prerogative. But everyone I've ever met goes, but why do I know? I don't know Pythagoras theorem now. I don't know a squared and b squared is c squared. That was useful for an exam.
Exactly.
Useful to memorise.
Yeah.
But when people, you need maths because what if the till breaks at Tesco? If the till breaks at Tesco, you're not going to.
It's basic maths. It's being able to add up. It's like when you measure a carpet for your house.
Yeah.
You don't go, it's 2xa times 3b. You know what I mean? It's like it's 24 foot times by 18 foot. It's teach kids to use a tape measure.
Yeah.
Teach kids basic financial intelligence. Like, don't get credit cards, don't rack them up. All the, understanding that when you've got a credit card, it's not your money.
Yeah, I've always said, I think at school, I think one thing they do get right is you do kind of learn basic cooking and things like that. And I think that's good, but I think there should be more of that because, I've had this conversation with quite a lot of people, and I've even seen like jokey memes about it and things
Yeah.
on Facebook, you know, and like school does not teach you what tax is.
No,
It doesn't
no.
tell you about TV licenses.
Yeah,
It doesn't tell
yeah.
you, you know, what you're entitled to if you're this, if you're in this position, if you're this age. And I think as well, there's so much stress and emphasis on you need to do your GCSEs,
Yeah.
so then you can do A levels.
Academic, yeah. It's the academic
Whereas,
route.
like, even the academic way, though, it's so much about A levels, but
Yeah.
like, there's level 3 BTECs, there's
Yeah.
MPQs, there's apprenticeships. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's treated as a one size fits all kind of system.
Yeah.
And there's people that have amazing talent, they're creative, you know, they can sing. And I know, like, you do drama, you do music and whatever, and it's touched on, but I don't think they're ever seen as valuable
No.
as practical things that can make you an accountant or a businessman or a lawyer. Like, but funnily enough, everyone that does have those jobs do buy art, they do listen
Yeah,
to
of course
music,
they do, yeah.
they do wear clothes.
Well,
like, someone has to be able to do these things.
We look at someone like Oasis, you know, the two brothers in Oasis haven't got, you know, weren't academically, you know, good at school, but they've earned millions of pounds for the British economy. When you think about it, you know, selling records. Now,
Yeah.
if it hadn't have been for the fact that, you know, Liam Gallagher, Liam the younger brother, yeah, you know, he was on the dole for like 2 years, and that's where he learnt how to sing, play songs, write songs. And you think to yourself, well, you know, for 45 quid a week, 50 quid a week, whatever they paid him, he's earned more in tax, brought more in tax in. It's having I think, you know, we're going back to snobbery again, but there's a certain amount of snobbery, and I think that snobbery is endemic in the education system. If you look at somewhere like Germany has a two-tier education system. It has what's called gymnasium, which are academic schools. This is secondary schools. And they have another one called Berufsschule, which are vocational colleges. So you go there to be a good shop worker, or to be, you know, you learn a skill, become a miner, but you get trained to be a miner in a college, not on the job. Now, Britain had the opportunity to do that system, and to some extent it's taken on that system, but not wholeheartedly. So about 10 years ago, vocational training was brought into schools for 13-year-olds, but it was the schools that had to deliver it, and most schools don't have people in place to deliver that vocational training. If you're going to teach people bricklayers, you need bricklayers to teach them. You don't need a teacher.
See, what I find funny about this is people always go, oh, you know, there's not enough jobs, there's this, whatever. Like, you could create jobs doing that, though.
Of course you could,
if there's a bricklayer out of work, and then they go to school, they get a wage, which I'd imagine would be quite good. Like, people that work in schools, the wage isn't, like, the best in the world.
No.
It's more than most people I know.
Yeah.
So...
But I know someone in Croxteth, an organisation in Croxteth, that set up their own vocational school, and what they used to do, all the local secondary schools, any kids who were 13, 14, who weren't going to be academically gifted in any way, would come onto their vocational schemes. Now, therefore, you know, the best one they used to run that I encountered was they used to have a catering scheme. So they used to run the cafes and all these community centres, but they used to do outside catering, and the quality of the training those kids got and the quality of the food they used to produce was phenomenal. But it was a real weird thing, because, you know, they might be making dinners for the centre that day, but the next day they might be going out to somewhere doing a big catering job at a conference, and they had to present themselves at this conference. They weren't like, you know, the chef wasn't doing all the work. It was the young people who were doing the work, and at the end of their time, the end of their 2 years, they would get jobs because they'd been properly trained. And the other thing, the way it worked was the training scheme used to let the schools keep the kids. Right. So if the kids did well at anything, they would get all the kudos for it. They'd get all the catering exams. Oh, we got these kids who was 13, weren't going to get anything, but they've got a BTEC in catering, right? And the schools used to pay the training scheme a couple of grand a year. I think you get about £3,500 for every pupil that you have in a secondary school, and I think the training scheme took a cut of that, a large cut of it. So the school weren't throwing the kid away, and they weren't throwing the money attached to the kids away. They're using that money constructively, and the kids were coming out. And they had a building scheme And I met some guy from another building company to do with the housing association, and he said the training that they're getting is phenomenal. He said any kid who's been through their training successfully, he said they'd add employment in a heartbeat, because I know they've been properly trained. They've not been taught to be a cowboy. They've been taught to be a proper trained builder, plasterer, electrician, etc. And that's what we need in this country.
As well, people forget while they're going, oh, you need to go do business, you need to go to uni, you need to do this. Yeah. Like, someone has to do these things. Who do they expect to do it? Like, if there's always cuts, for example, in arts and humanities within unis, because they say it's not desirable, what jobs you get. But I think people create jobs with stuff like that. Like, people make theatre companies, people do arts administration, they work at museums, they work with schools, they work with disabled people. There's lots to come. I think sometimes it's the execution of these different things is what's more important than the actual...
But to go back to what we said before about working on tramlines, if people are taught in tramlines, they'll only have this one specific job to come out of at the end of it. When in point of fact, training, especially in universities, and there's a little bit of it happening, but, people should be encouraged. It's, let's go back to the radio. There's courses in university teaching people for jobs in radio, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there aren't that many jobs in radio. Media jobs are not as well paid as they were 30 or 40 years ago. If you got a job in the BBC 40 years ago, there was a progression and you got decent pay. Nowadays, there's such a plethora of media that it doesn't actually, they expect you to work for nothing a lot of the time. And the growth area really in media is probably community radio, but there's no money in that either. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, well, how do you need to be taught how to make money from nothing. This is what I'm trying to say here. How to develop social enterprise. So in point of fact, what we're doing here let's use an analogy. I've got a great analogy at the moment because I'm doing this. We've got a bakery that makes sourdough bread. How do you make bread? Jack, how do you make bread?
Yeast, water, flour.
Yeah, anything else? You can get away with those four things. You put sugar in sometimes as well to activate the yeast. If you want it to be a bit tomatoey, right?
Yeah, well, herbs, oils, whatever you want.
Okay, so you get your yeast. Your yeast comes in a little container. It's been to a factory and everything like that. And you've got to activate it. And it dies off if you don't use it right. It's dead. You go to it. It doesn't work because it's died, right? Well, we have a sourdough bakery. And sourdough bread is like magic. It's like the magic bread because it's the same process, but it's done slightly differently, right? And because it's done slightly differently, it doesn't have sugar in it, doesn't have yeast in it, right? Sourdough bread has 3 ingredients. It has flour, it has water, and it has salt. That's the only 3 things in it. So when you put a piece of sourdough bread in your mouth, you know exactly what you're eating. Go and get a Warburton's wrapper and have a look at the ingredients. It's about that long, right? And it's E number E295 emulsifying salt or whatever, right? What you do with sourdough is you make something called a starter. You get a bowl, you put water in that bowl, you put flour in that bowl, you mix it all up, and you grate an organic apple into that bowl, right? So what happens next? You leave it, and all the yeast, we're sitting in a room full of yeast at the moment. Yeast is everywhere, and it's very prominent on the skin of organic apples. So the yeast in that organic apple starts the starter to start.
Does it have to specifically be an organic apple?
Because other apples are washed. They wash all the yeast off. It can be anything that's got yeast on it. You actually off your hands. You've got yeast on your hands, right? There's yeast in the air. You can do without anything, but it helps to get it going with an organic apple. You put that there, and within 2 days it'll start bubbling, right? Because the yeast in the air has gone in there and gone, oh, this is a good environment to grow, and it starts growing. And then after another 3 days, you throw half of it away, right? Throw it away. Didn't want to do that when I was doing it. You put a bit more water in it, a bit more flour. You start feeding the yeast. So the yeast is growing. So from out of nowhere, you've suddenly got this magic mixture, right? That if you put in an ordinary bread mix now replaces the yeast in the bread mix. So you don't have to put any yeast in it.